Hello Morelands, it's me, Miss Bryant. I'm sure you've all heard about Albert and he'll probably be staying with us throughout the story. Thank you to Miss Cooper for your wonderful stories, and Mrs Morgan, yours was great too. So, the book I've chosen is a David Walliams book, and it's The World's Worst Children too. The chapter that I'm going to be reading is Gruesome Griselda. You may have heard and even listened to David Walliams over the last few weeks, as at 11 o'clock each day he reads a chapter of his stories. Okay, here goes. Gruesome Griselda. Creepy crawlies are called creepy crawlies for a reason. They are creepy and they are crawly. Slugs, worms, spiders, caterpillars and cockroaches are creatures that give most people the creeps. Not Griselda. Griselda was a girl who loved creepy crawlies. If she saw a worm wiggling around in the mud, she would pick it up and put it in her pocket. Now worms don't make the best pets. Worms don't even come if you call them, "Worm!" If you throw a worm a stick, it won't bring it back. Worm, fetch! You can't train worms to do tricks. Worm, roll over. Worm, beg. Worm, paw. However, Griselda had other plans for these slimy creatures. The little girl would use them to give people the willies. Griselda attended an incredibly posh all-girls boarding school, the Duchess of Queensberry School for girls with extremely wealthy parents. The school was full of young ladies with long hair and even longer names, like the Honourable Lady Atonia Rose Huntingdon Smith. They were all more perfect than perfect, with their perfect skin and perfect teeth and perfect nails. In their spare time, the girls liked to press wild flowers, embroider lace handkerchiefs, and decorate fairy cakes. Griselda delighted in being the odd one out. The little girl never brushed her teeth, never brushed her hair, so it was like a bird's nest, topped off with a grotty purple hair scrunchie. She loved having black grime under her fingernails, and most of all, Griselda was proud to be more than a little pony. The very proper headmistress, Miss Fragrant, would take one look at the girl and bawl at her, "Griselda, you need a bath!" "No thank you, headmistress. Lying in your filthy bathwater for hours can't be healthy." Then off Griselda would bound to roll in some mud, drag herself for a bush, or lie in a puddle. When night fell, Griselda would sneak out of her dormitory to find some creepy crawlies. These she used to play gruesome tricks on everyone at school. There was the time when the little girl gathered hundreds of leeches. She placed them under the covers of the head girl's bed. A nasty, slippery surprise was waiting for Lady Clarissa Jane Heather Blenheim when she slid between the sheets. "Ah!" screamed the girl as outside the window Gruesome Griselda sniggered to herself. Ha ha ha. Or there was the day when Griselda spied a pair of the headmistress's frilly bloomers hanging on the washing line of her garden. Griselda picked up the two longest, tickliest caterpillars she could find and then hid them in the ladies' knickers. That morning in assembly, as Miss Fragrant was leading the entire school in prayers, the headmistress found herself unable to keep still. Oh! Her bottom had never felt so itchy. Ah! All the schoolgirls looked at the lady aghast as the usually proper Miss Fragrant wriggled and hopped around the stage, yelping like a little dog. Yep, yep, yep. Only Griselda knew the reason why. Sitting in the back row of the school hall, she couldn't help smirking at the chaos she had caused. Worst of all was the time on prize-giving day when the guest of honour at the school was none other than Her Majesty the Queen. The Queen was there to hand out the prizes to all the girls who were even more superior than the others, and give a speech on how best to succeed in life. When all this was happening, Griselda, who was unlikely to be burdened with any prize unless there was one for the cheesiest feet, sneaked off to the school kitchen. There she replaced all the cucumber in the sandwiches with live, slippery slugs. As all the prize winners took tea and sandwiches at the garden party after with the Queen, everyone on their absolute best behaviour. Even though the cucumber sandwiches tasted disgusting, the teachers Parents and prize-winning girls all swallowed them without complaint. No one wanted to make a scene in the presence of such a distinguished guest. "Delightful sandwiches," said one old duchess. "Yes, this cucumber is so fresh-tasting," replied a countess. "It's almost as if it's alive." Who would spit out their food in front of Her Majesty the Queen? Well, nobody, except Her Majesty the Queen. This was for the simple reason that she was Her Majesty the Queen already. Her Royal Highness took one bite of her slug sandwich and immediately spat it out. "Bleh!" she screamed, and she splattered the food all over the headmistress. Breadcrumbs covered Miss Fragrant's hair, while a half-chewed slug ended up stuck to her glasses. Above their heads, a branch of a tree was bouncing up and down. Griselda was hiding up there, hooting to herself uncontrollably. "There was a live slug in my sandwich!" barked the Queen. "Is that so?" replied the headmistress, squirming with embarrassment as all her eyes turned to her. "Does your Royal Highness not like live slugs as a sandwich filling?" "No," replied the Queen, "and not dead ones either." "Noted. We promise never to serve your Royal Highness any slug-based snacks next time." "There won't be a next time," spluttered the Queen as she marched off in the direction of her Rolls-Royce. "Slug sandwiches! I've been served some revolting food on my travels, but this is the absolute worst. Have that headmistress locked in a dungeon in the Tower of London." "It's a museum now, ma'am," replied her lady-in-waiting. "Well, then lock her up in the gift shop," snapped the Queen. She slumped in the back of her Rolls-Royce. "Put your foot down, ma'am." "Yes, ma'am," replied the chauffeur as the beast of a car zoomed away, the flags flapping in the wind. "And stop at the nearest kebab shop. I need to have something to take this disgusting taste away," the Queen barked desperately, trying to rub the slug juice off her tongue with a lace handkerchief. This was the darkest day in the school's long history. Immediately, all the pupils, parents and teachers were gripped by this mystery. Who was the phantom Creepy Crawly's pest? Wanted posters were put up all over the school. Wanted. Do you know who put leeches in the head girl's bed, hid caterpillars in the headmistress's undergarments, and put an unspeakable creature in the otherwise delicious sandwiches served to Her Majesty the Queen? On prize-giving day, information wanted. £1,000 reward given for any information that leads to their capture. All the girls at the Duchess of Queensberry's were too rich to care about mere £100, so the reward had to be put up to £1,000. That was a whole week's pocket money to some of those girls. Still, there were more attacks. A toilet bowl in the staff room was filled with cockroaches, and they nipped to the bottom of the history teacher's, Miss Wolseley's, as soon as she sat on the toilet seat. Ouch! A huge hairy spider gave the art teacher, Miss Hockney, the shock of her life when it was put in the box of her brooches, and the lady tried to pin it to her chest. Ah! And the school's matron came in for a nasty surprise when she poured herself a large tumbler of whiskey at the end of the day, only to find the bottle was full of live maggots. No! Every time Griselda played a nasty trick on someone, she wanted it to be even more gruesome than the last. Morning before school, Griselda would rise at dawn to go down to the pond to fish out tadpoles, frogs and newts. Lunchtimes were spent foraging in the grounds for beetles, centipedes and woodlice. In the dead of the night, Griselda would sneak out of her bed to dig up the school playing field for worms. Each night, she would put hundreds of the ridiculous ones in a wheelbarrow and take them back to her dormitory. All the creatures would be stored in a huge trunk under the girl's bed. It was a treasure trove of yuck. Soon, the trunk was a swirling, whirling mass of creepy crawlies. Griselda would laugh to herself as she poured in her latest finds. When she finally slipped into bed after foraging expeditions, Griselda would dream up her nightmare. The bigger, the badder, the better. From out of the darkest corner of her mind crawled the nastiest of thoughts. Could Griselda use all these creatures at once? That way she could create the most gruesome trick of all time. This would be her masterpiece. It was a gruesome plan, even by Griselda's standards. The little girl decided she would fill the headmistress's bath from top to bottom with creepy crawlies. Miss Fragrant always lectured Griselda about having a jolly good soak. and would often rhapsodise to her pupils in assembly of the joys of bath time. Girls, you must bath at least twice a day. It cleanses not just the body, but more importantly, the mind, she would say. As soon as it went dark, Griselda dragged her heavy trunk to the headmistress's cottage. She climbed into the house through an open window and found the bathroom. The bath was already full of hot water, and the sweet smell of lavender oil hung in the air. It was a smell that made Griselda feel yuck. The lights in the bathroom were dimmed and candles were placed around the bath. The girl pulled the plug and drained the bath of water. In the next room, she could spy the headmistress in her nightgown, putting her long grey hair up into a bath cap in readiness for a nightly soak. Next, the gruesome girl put the plug back in and poured all the creepy crawlies from her trunk into the bath. She filled it to the brim. It was a terrifying sight, all those creepy crawlies, creepy crawling over each other. It was a sea of horrors. Griselda stood back and admired her work. Ha ha ha, she sniggered to herself. The wicked picture she had painted in her mind of Miss Fragrant unwittingly slipping into the bath. However, as the little girl was lost in thought, the headmistress swung open the bathroom door. Bang! The door knocked Griselda clean over and she toppled headfirst into the bath. In seconds, the creepy crawlies covered her. They devoured her instantly. The headmistress desperately tried to pull Griselda out of the bath. Griselda! Griselda! But there was nothing left of the girl, save for a half-eaten purple hair scrunchie. In a way, Griselda had been right. Baths were not for her. If she had lived, the girl would have learned an important lesson. Never play tricks on people that wouldn't want played on you. What a great story that was, although it be a bit gruesome. Thank you for joining me, and thanks Albert for joining us too. And I wonder who's going to read a story next. Stay safe everyone, and hopefully we'll look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye!